Chaya Bhega Domi, Chaya Dosha Shodhi, Chaya Devna Deho Dase. Chaya Satsanga, Deo He Amare, Boshashi Sangera Ashe. Ekakiyama Nai Pai Balo Harinama Sankirtane. Tumi kripa kori Sharabindu diya Deho Krishna namadane. Krishna se tomar, Krishna dite paro, tamara shakati ache. Amito kanga. Krishna Krishna boli daitava pache pache. Ohe Vaishnava Thakur Goya Rasagara Dasi Kori Ohe Jaya Vaishnava Thakur Vaishnava Thakur Vaishnava Thakur Jaya Vaishnava Thakur Jai Jai Prabhupada 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 Jai Jai Prabhupada Ujvala Varana, Ujvala Varana, Goravara Deham, Nivasita Niravari Bhava Videham, Ujvala Varana, Goravara Deham, Nivasita Niravari Tribhuvana Pavana Kripaya Lesham Tam pranamami cha Shri Sachitanayam. Gagaram Tatra Baba Vikaram Durjana Tarjana Nada Vishalam. Bhava Bhaya Bhajana Karuna Karunam Tam Pranamami Cha Shri Sachitanayam. Arunam Paradara Charu Kapolam Induvin Nakachaya Ruchiram Jalpita Nicha Guna Nama Vinodam Tamprana Mamicha Shishachi Tanayam Vigalita Nayana Kamala Jaladadam Bhushana Navarasa Bhava Vikaram Gati Ati Bantara Nitya Vilasam Tam Pranamami Cha Shri Shachitanayam Chanchala Charu Charana Gati Ruchiram Manjira Ranjita Padajuga Madhuram Chandra Venindita Shitala Varanam Kamprana Manicha Shri Shachitanayam Jiti Kakti Dora Kamandalu Dandam Divya Kalevara Mundita Mundam Durjana Kalmasha Kandana Dandam Tam Pranamami Cha Shri Shachitanayam Bhushana Burajala Kavalitam Kampita Bimdara Vararuchiram Mayaja Vira Chitta Ujjvala Kilakam Tam Pranamami Cha Shri Shachitanayam Nindita Aruna Kamala Dalanayanam Ajanulam Dikta Shri Bhujadikalam Kalivara Kaishora Nartakavesham Tam Pranamami Cha Shri Shachitanayam Ujjvala Varana Koda Pada Deham Vilasita Niravadhi Baba Videham Sachinandan Gaura Hari Ki Jai Shri Navadvitam Ki Jai Sri Bhuvana Pavana Kupaya Lesham Tam Pranamami Cha Shri Shachitanayam Jai Sachinandana, Jai Gaura Hari. Sachinandana Jaya Gaura Hari Jaya Gaurantai, 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 Jaya Gaurantai. Jai Gaura Hari Bol, Hari Bol, Hari Bol, Jai Gaura Hari Bol. Vavari Shesha Aloka Prodesha Nidrachari Utajiva Bolo Hari Hari Mukunda Murari Rama Krishna Hayadeva Nishinga Vamana Shimadusudana Rajendra Nana Shama Putana Gatana Kaitava Shatana Jaita Sarati Rama Yashoda Dulala Govinda Gopala Vrindavana Purandara Gopi Priyadana Radhika Ramana Bhuvana Sundara Vara Ravana Kakara Makana Taskara Gopi Jana Asahari Rajeva Rakala Gopa Vrindapala Chittahari Vamsitari Yogindra Vandana Shinandanandana Rajajana Bhayahari Navina Niran Rupa Manohara Mohana Vamshi Hari Yashoda Nandana Kamsani Surana Nikunjala Samila Karambakhanana Rasa Parayana Vrindavipina Kilasi Ananda Vardana Premani Kedana Kulashara Jojakama Gopangana Gana Chitta Vinodana Samasta Guna Gana Jamuna Jivana Keliparayana Manasa Chandra Chakora Namsudaraja Gav Krishna Dasha Rakovachana Manamoda Hare Krishna Hare Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama Hare Rama 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 Hare Hare Arjuna Vacha Arjuna Vacha Kim Tad Brahma Kim Adyatmam Kim Karma Purushottama Yadikutam Shikim Proktam Adidaivam Kim Uchate Adiyagya Katam Kotra Dehesmin Madhusudana Prayana Kali Chakatam Gayosini Atatmabi Sri Bhagavan Vacha Aksharam Brahma Paramam sabhavodhyatmamuchyate Uta bhavod bhavakaro karma samjitaha Adiputam sharo bhava Purushascha daivatam Adiyagyahamevatra Dehe deha vratambara Antakale chamameva Smaran mukva kalevaram Yaprayati tasampavam Yati nasyatra shamshayaha Yang yang vapi smaran bhavam Tajatyante kalevaram Tam tam evaite konteya Sadatad bhava bhavita Tasmat sarveshu kaleshu Mamanusmara yudyaja Mayarpita mano budhir Mami vaishyasya samshayaha Abhyasa yoga yuktena Chetasananya gamina Paramam purusham divyam Yati partanu chintayam Kavim purana manushashitaram Anoraniyam samanusmaredyaha Sarvasya dataram achintya rupam Aditya varnam tamasa prarastat Prayana kale manasa chalena Bhaktya yukto yoga palena chaiva Dhruvar madhye pranamavesha samyak Satam param purusham upaiti divyam Yachanam deda vido vadanti Yachanti adyatayo vitaraga Yarichanto brahmacharyam charanti Tate padam sangrahena pravakshe Sarvadvarani samyamya Manohridi narujata Murdhyadhaya mana pranam Astito yogadharanam Om ityekaksharam brahma Yaharam marusparam Yaprayati tajam deham Sayati paramam gatim Ananya cheta satatam Yomam smarati nityasaha Tasyaham sulabha partha Nikta yuktasya yogina Mamupeta punarjanma Dukalayam ashashvatam Napnuvanti mahatmana Samsiddhim paramam gata Abrahma bhuvana loka Punaravarti norjuna Mamupetya tu kaunteya Punarjanma nevidyate Sahasra yuga paryantam Arhatyat brahmano vidhu Ratrim yuga sahasrantam Teho ratra vidojana Avyakta vyaktaya sarva Prabhavatyar haragame Ratyagame praliyante Tatraivabhyaktya samjake Bhutagram nasa evayam Bhutva bhutva praliyate Ratyagame vashaparta Prabhavarathamagame Parastasmatu bhavonyo Vyakto vyaktat sanatanaha Yatsak sarveshu bhuteshu Nashyatsu na vinashyati Abhyakta shora ityuktas Tamahu paramam gatim Yam prapya nanivartante Taddama paramam mama Purushasa paraparta Bhaktyalabhyasvananyaya Yasyantastani bhutani Yena sarvam idam tatam Yatra kale tvanavratim Avratim chaiva yogina Prayatayanti tam kalam Bakshami bharatarshaba Agnir jyotir ahashukla Shanmasa uttarayanam Tatra prayata gachanti Brahma brahma vido janaha Tumo ratristata Krishna Shanmasa Dakshanayanam Tatra Chandranama Jyotir Yogi Prapya Nivartate Shukla Krishne Gati Yete Jagata Shashvate Mate Ekaya Yatyana Vratim Anyaya Vartate Punaha Naite Sriti Partha Janan Yogi Muhyati Kashana Tasmat Sarveshu Kaleshu Yoga Yukto Bhavarjana Vedeshu Yagneshu Tapasu Chaiva Daneshu Yat Punya Palam Pratishtam Atyeti Tat Sarvamidam Vaditva Yogi Param Stanam Upaiti Chadyam Om Tat Sat Iti Srimad Bhagavad Gita Supanishatsu Brahma Vidyayam Yoga Shastre Shri Krishna Arjuna Sambade Taraka Brahma Yoga Nama Ashtamodhyayaha Hari Om. Guru Puja, no? Guru Puja. Namashreshtam manamapi sachiputramatra sarupam Shirupam tasyagrajam uruparim matarim goshtavatim Radha kundam girivaramoho Radhika madhavasham Prapto yasya pratita kripaya Shri gurum tam natosmi He Guru Jnanadadina Bandho Swananda Data Korunaika Sindho Vrindavana Sinahita Avatar Prasida Radha Pranaya Pracharo He Dina Bandho Korunaika Sindho Kuru Prasada Mai Mandamudhe Laksha Parade Bahupapa Gadhe Tatpada Padme Stumatishta Krishna. I bow down to the beautiful lotus feet of my spiritual master. By whose causeless mercy I have obtained the supreme holy name, the divine mantra, the service of the son of Shachi Mata, the association of Srila Swarup Damodar, Rupa Goswami and his older brother Sanatan Goswami, the supreme abode of Mathura, the blissful abode of Vrindavan, the divine Radha Kunda and Govardhan Hill, and the desire within my heart for the loving service of Shri Radhika and Madhava in Vrindavan. O spiritual master, O giver of divine wisdom, O friend of the fallen, you are the giver of your own bliss, and you are the only ocean of mercy. Although dwelling in Vrindavan, you have descended for the welfare of fallen souls like myself, and you are preaching the divine love of Radha for Krishna. Please be kind upon me. O friend of the lowly, O Gurudev, you are the only ocean of mercy. I am a dull fool and have committed hundreds of thousands of offenses. I have fallen into a dense myriad of sins. Therefore grace me with your mercy so that my mind may be fixed on your lotus feet and on Sri Krishna. The lotus feet of our spiritual master are the only way by which we can attain pure devotional service. I bow to his lotus feet with great awe and reverence. By his grace, one can cross the ocean of material suffering and obtain the mercy of Krishna. Our only wish is to have our consciousness purified by the words emanating from his lotus mouth. Attachment to his lotus feet is the perfection that fulfills all desires. He opens our darkened eyes and fills our heart with transcendental knowledge. He is our birth after the birth. From him ecstatic prema emanates. By him ignorance is destroyed. The Vedic scriptures sing of his character. Our spiritual master is the ocean of mercy, the friend of the poor and the Lord and master of the devotees. O Master, be merciful unto us. Give us the shade of your lotus feet. Your fame is spread all over the three worlds. Sri Guru Charana Padma Kevalabha Koti Sadma Bando Mui Sabadana Mate Jahara Prasare Bhae Bhavaturiya Jai Krishna Prapti Hoy Jaha Hoy Te Padma Vakya Shitete Koriya Aikya Guru Mukha Padma Vakya Shitete Koriya Aikya Charane Radhe Ashayutama Gate Jeta Shade Ture Sarva Jai Prashade Pure Sarva Asha Chakudan Diloge Janme Janme Prabhu Chakudan Diloge Janme Janme Prabhu Gyan Hire Pokashita Gyan Hire Pokashita Prema Bhakti Jaha Hoite Ati Jamina Sajate Haribo होते अभी जाति न सजाते तेरी गाय जहर चरित तेरी गाय जहर चरित श्री गुरु करुणा सिंधु आत्म जनारा Guru Karuna Sindhu Atama Janara Bandhu Lokanath Lokera Jivana Lokanath Lokera Jivana Ha ha Prabhu Kora Doya Deha More Jaya Jastu Shikri Bhuvana Aha Prabhu Gora Joya Deha More Parajaya Jaya Prabhupada 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 Jai Jai Prabhupada 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 Jai Jai Prabhupada Jai Prabhupada 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 Jai Prabhupada Jai Jai Prabhupada 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 Nama Om Vishnu Padaya Krishna Prestaya Bhutale Srimate Bhakti Vedanta Swaminiti Namine Srimate Namaste Saraswate Deve Gauravani Pracharine Nirvishesha Shunyavati Paschatya Rishatarine Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Shri Advaita Gadadha Shivasati Gaur Bhakta Vrinda Prabhu Nityananda Shri Advaita Gadadha Shivasati Jaya Shri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Shri Advaita Gadadha Shivasati Gaur Bhakta Vrinda Kali Kukur Kanam Jadi Chao Hey Kali Yuga Pavana Kolivaya Nashana Satinandana Gao Hey Radhar Madhan Natyayar Pranadan Advaita Prabhujita Gora Nimani Bishambar Srinivasishwar Tasamua Chitta Chora Nam Pravartana Sura. Grihi Jana Shikshaka Nyasi Kulanayaka Madhava Radha Baba Pura. Sarvabona Shodana Gajapati Tarana Ramananda Poshana Vira. Rupananda Bhajana Sanatana Palanda Haridas Morana Prajarasvamana Jishamakashatana Kapati Vikatana Kama. Shuddha Bhakta Palana Shukya Jnana Tarana Chala Bhakti Dushana Rama. Kali Kukurtaram Jari Chao He Adam Kali Yuga Pavana Koli Maya Nashana Sikati Nanda Dao He Kali Yuga Pavana Koli Maya Nashana Sikati Nanda. Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Nitai Gaura Haribo, 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 Nitai Gaura Haribo. Jaya Jaya Prabhupada, 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 Jaya Jaya Prabhupada. Jayom Vishnupad Paramahamsa Parivrajaka Jajashtotar Shishimad Apai Charanada Vinda Bhakti Vedanta Swami Maharaj Srila Prabhupada Ki Jai. Jayom Vishnupad Paramahamsa Parivrajaka Jajashtotar Shishimad Srila Bhakti Siddhanta Saraswati Goswami Maharaj Ki Jai. Ananta Koti Vaishnavini Ki Jai. Namacharya Srila Haridas Thakur Ki Jai. Prem se Gaho Shri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Sri Advaita Gadadhara Shivasari Gaur Bhaktivinoda Ki Jai. Shri Shri Radha Krishna Gokopinath Shamakund Radhakund Giri Govardhan Ki Jai. Sri Vrindavan Nam Ki Jai. Sri Mayapur Navadvip Dham Ki Jai. Shri Jagannath Puri Dham Ki Jai. Tulsi Devi Bhakti Devi Ki Jai. Jamuna Devi Ganga Devi Ki Jai. Samvita Bhaktivinoda Ki Jai. All glories to the assembled devotees. All glories assembled devotees. All glories assembled devotees. Go Premanande Hari Hari Bo. Nitai Gaura Haribo. Haribol, Haribol, Nitai Gaura Haribol. Please make the room ready for the Srimad Bhagavatam class. We're very happy, more than just happy. We feel like we got our life back. We're welcoming back to ISV His Grace Radhika Raman Prabhu, and this time with family. Haribol. For some reason there was malaise over the last couple of years, and then we finally realized what it was. Not enough Radhika Raman Prabhu Sangha. So thank you very much for coming back to ISV. We're deeply grateful and been looking forward to this day for a long time. Please welcome His Grace Radhika Raman Prabhu. Hare Krishna. Gaur Premanande Haribo.
Stand and sit alternately.
Okay. Do you like to wear this?
Yes.
Okay. All right. We'll have that ready for you over there. Thank you. And
To begin with, yeah. You want me to put this?
No, yeah, let's get this on. And there we go.
Okay, no rush. Yeah, thank you. Jaya Radha Madhava Kunja Bihari Jaya Radha Jaya Radha Madhava Kunja Bihari Jaya Radha Jaya Radha Madhava Kunja Bihari Jaya Gopijana Vallabha Girivaradhari Jaya Gopijana Vallabha Girivaradhari Jashoda Nandana Brajajana Ranjana 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 Jamuna Tira Vanachari Yamuna Yamuna Tira Vanachari Yamuna Jaya Radha Madhava Kunja Bihari Jaya Radha Madhava Kunja Bihari Jaya Gopi Janna Vallabha Girivaradhari Jaya Gopi Jana Vallabha Girivara Dhari Yashoda Nandana Braja Janara 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 Yamuna Tira Manachari Yamuna Yamuna Tira Manachari Yamuna Jaya Radha Madhava Kunja Bihari Jaya Radha Madhava Kunja Bihari Hare Krishna Hare Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama Hare Rama 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 Hare 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 Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Jaya Jaya Prabhupada, Prabhupada, Jai Prabhupada, Jai Prabhupada. Jaya Jaya Prabhupada, Prabhupada, Jai Prabhupada. श्री श्री राधा मदन मोहन की जय, शिल प्रभुपाद की जय, ग्रंथराज श्रीमद् भागवतम की जय, ताई गौर प्रेमानंदी हरि।
Hare Krishna. Thank you everyone for joining us in the live studio audience and online. In the process of Krishna consciousness, it's extremely important to have context. Context means we understand how our process of bhakti yoga fits into the greater scheme of not just Vaishnavism in general, but the concept of religion in general as well. Sometimes growing up in a tradition, one may then feel that perhaps everyone's just fanatically attached to a particular process. And then he or she might observe, well, other people are the same, other groups, so there's not much difference between one and another. In fact, yesterday, happened to be talking to a second-generation devotee who's been successful in her devotional career, but also understands the conundrum of growing up in Krishna consciousness and the need for getting a wider perspective. And we were discussing how there are certain people who are very learned in our Gaudiya Vaishnava Siddhanta, Srimad Bhagavatam, and very particularly Prabhupada's books, but also have a wide vision of all the traditions, what to speak of the principles of religion in general. And one of those people is Radhika Raman Prabhu. His unique and highly Krishna conscious upbringing, along with his own scholarship, brings this perspective to us. It's extremely helpful to see the context of what we're doing here in relationship to all the other practices of yoga and of religion in the world, and helps us to understand how unique and special it is, even while appreciating the various practices that other people are sincerely engaged in. So it's our great honor to have Radhika Raman Prabhu here, as well as Amrita Kelly and Chaitanya and Purushottam. Hare Krishna. We were recently in their home in Utah and found the entire experience to be rejuvenating. So we are advocates of sending this family all over the world for the benefit of others, but we're a little bit selfish and hope that we can have more and more of your association here, and we thank you very much for coming. Hare Krishna.
Thank you so much for that very kind introduction. My humble respects to His Grace Vaisheshika Prabhu and Her Grace Nirakula Mataji. It's always a privilege and pleasure to be here at ISKCON Silicon Valley. Because of the pandemic, it's been a couple of years at least since we had an opportunity to visit. So I was missing that association, and then Prabhu and Mataji came to our home and gave us some relief from that suffering, and we were blessed with their association. But really, I'm so grateful to all of you for welcoming us back and for being here today. My humble respects to all of you. I know there's so many good friends and learned devotees in the audience, both here and online. So my respects to all of you as well. Please repeat after me. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Om Jnanatimirandhasya Jnananjanashalakaya Chakshurun Militam Jena Tasmai Shri Gurave Namaha. So the topic of today's seminar and tomorrow as well, 3 parts, is called The Art of Speaking for Krishna. Sooner or later, each one of us is called to speak for Krishna, to speak about Krishna, to describe his qualities and his glories, to preach Krishna consciousness, to represent Krishna, and to give a Bhagavatam class, to speak to a university audience, to participate in an interfaith event, to meet someone and explain Krishna on the street. So many different contexts. And over the years, people have asked me so many times, I'm supposed to be giving a class on this topic, and can you please help me figure out what I should be saying and how I should structure the class? And so, of course, it's always a joy to do that and to help devotees craft a class and think through it and think through them together. And I always gain many wonderful realizations and inspirations from that process. But over the years, I thought, well, why not give a seminar on giving a seminar, or give a class on giving a class, which is essentially what this is. They say, sometimes this is attributed to the Chinese sage Lao Tzu, and sometimes to someone more recently, but you've heard this before. Give a man a fish and you feed him for a day. Teach him how to fish and you feed him for a lifetime. Make him a devotee and he can never fish again. So this is the idea here, not the last part, but the idea is that, if we understand the process that goes into speaking for Krishna, speaking about Krishna, then we can practice it ourselves. It's a like everything in bhakti, it's a sadhana, it's a practice, it's something we do over and over and over again. Over the years, one of the principles of giving seminars for myself is that I always try to choose my topics at the intersection of Shastra and personal experience. If something is not grounded, if a topic that you're speaking on is not grounded in Shastra, well, then it's just your personal opinion. And how is my personal opinion worth any more than yours? We have different sets of experiences, and we all bring, certain skills. So it's just an idea of, it's a matter of opinion, right? So it has to be grounded in Shastra. But then for anything Shastric to have impact, for it to hit the audience, to hit home, to make an impact, it has to come from a place of some experience or some realization. Otherwise, it becomes very theoretical. This is, as we will discuss further in this seminar, this is described in Srimad Bhagavatam as yathadhitam yathamati. Sutta Goswami says that I will speak now yathadhitam, as I have learned it. This is through parampara, as shastric, as it is shastric, and yathamati, as I have realized it, right, as I have understood it. So it's at the intersection of yathadhitam and yathamati that all good speaking happens. And this is one of those topics that by virtue of just karma, essentially, I've ended up practicing for almost 30 years now, speaking and speaking and speaking and speaking to devotee audiences, Sunday feast class, Srimad Bhagavatam class, and then professionally at the university, talking to students, and practically every other day of my life is on a stage, talking in some capacity or another, and speaking. So this is something that's reflecting back, this has been part of my karma, right? Just you get a certain toolkit. Every one of us, when we come into this world, we get a certain toolkit, a bag of tools that we can use then to construct whatever it is we want to do in life. And that toolkit is our karma. Right? It's not our fate. Right? Everything's not planned out for us. It's a toolkit. And we take that toolkit, we can build something from it. So this is part of my karma, I realized. And when you realize, okay, it's your karma, then you think, okay, then I have to do it. If Krishna's given me this toolkit, I have to do it as my duty, right? And your karma, your toolkit becomes your dharma. It becomes your duty that you practice. And you think, this is what I have to do because this is the path for perfection, because this is who I am, right? And then you do your dharma and you realize, hey, instead of doing this just as a duty, I could be doing this for Krishna, and it can turn into seva. So we find this often in our life, this sequence, if we think about it, of karma, dharma, and seva. That we're constrained by our karma. There's certain things, I was never born to be an athlete, right? It was just not going to happen. And so I could have tried, I could have struggled, but it was not part of the toolkit that Krishna gave me very early on. He didn't give me that as part of my toolkit. It's not my karma, right? So you recognize what your karma is and you think, I need to do this intentionally as my dharma, as my duty, and through that I can get perfection. And then you think, but if I do this for Krishna, I can get something more. And then dharma turns into seva, which is yet greater. So karma, dharma, seva. Right? So for many of us, we may find that alongside the many things we do, speaking for Krishna is part of it. And as Vaishnavas, we will find that it will always be part of what we're asked to do. It's just, we'll talk about this a little bit. So, a well-crafted speech, a well-crafted talk, it's like a story. It absorbs the audience. It opens up new worlds for them. It's like opening the blinds and saying, look there, there's a world out here. And taking them on a journey, just like a storyteller does. Telling a good speech is like a well-crafted story. It's also like a debate. A good speech is a debate. It draws the listener in to an argument, to a reasoning process. It engages their intelligence. It makes them wrestle with things that they've never thought of before. A good speech is like a magic show. It enthralls the audience. It fascinates them. And it seems totally effortless. Like you've seen magicians, it seems like, we have the expression in English, you pulled it out of a hat, right? It basically means doing something effortlessly. It just looks like it's the simplest thing in the world, even though we know that there's a lot of effort that goes into a magic trick or a magic show. They practice and practice and practice to make it look so effortless, right? So simple. Now, do you know the number one rule of a magician? What's the number one rule of a magician? Never tell your secrets. So that's exactly what we're going to do in this seminar. Okay? We're going to tell all the secrets that go into a well-crafted speech for Krishna. Okay? So that's kind of the idea. The seminar is divided into 3 parts. Intent, content, and delivery. What is the intention, the frame of mind, the mood that needs to go into a speaking for Krishna in any context? What is the content? How do we build a content for that talk that is solid? And third is delivery. What are the mechanics, the building blocks the tricks and tips that go into teaching. Essentially, this is about teaching, right? We can call it a speech, and it sounds very political, formulaic, right? We can call it a lecture, and it sounds really boring. We can call it a talk, and it sounds very casual. There's many forms that it comes in: a dialogue, discussion, conversation, all of these different angles. But essentially, this is about teaching. That's what it is, right? We're all called to be teachers, as we'll talk about in just a minute. So intent, content, and delivery. Intent, content, and I was looking for a third word that rhymed with the first two, but I couldn't think of anything. So intent, content, and delivery. Okay? So that's the intention part is going to be this morning up to 10 o'clock. And then the content part is going to be starting 11:30. And then tomorrow morning is going to be the delivery part. Okay? Approximately. One might spill over a little bit into the other, but that's the basic structure. Okay. So I'm going to alternate between standing and sitting, just because my usual mode of teaching is standing. So, okay. So the first question, the first question I want to address is being a, one second here, is being a teacher, is being asked to speak, is that arrogance? Like, should we be eager to talk, to lecture, to speak? As devotees, we cultivate humility, and there's a natural hesitance to be in the limelight, to be standing here on stage. And the eagerness to speak for Krishna can feel like the eagerness for self-promotion. It can feel like arrogance. We'll talk about how to deal with that in just a moment. But let me just say, first of all, the simple answer is no. The reason it's not is because the desire to speak for Krishna is in the attempt to speak for Krishna is in direct fulfillment of the instruction of Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu for each of us. His famous instruction, Jare dekho, tare koho, Krishna upadesh. Amar agnay guru haya, taro ei desh. Jare dekho, tare koho, Krishna upadesh. Whoever you see, tell them about Krishna's instruction. This is an instruction Mahaprabhu doesn't give to just very, very advanced devotees, or just to sannyasis, or just to the Goswamis. This is an instruction he gives to a simple householder who wants to follow him. He wants to leave with Mahaprabhu. He says, I'm done with this material life. I want to go with you. And he says, no. He says, do not speak such words, because it's not right for him. He says, much better, Jare dekho, tare koho, Krishna upadesh. Whoever, you stay here, and whoever you meet, you tell them Krishna's instruction. Prabhupada quotes this verse many times. And one place he quotes it, which I find a very beautiful purport, is in the chapter where Prahlad Maharaj instructs his schoolmates, who are demons, children of demons. And in that, he has a verse. If we could please call up on the screen, Canto 7, Chapter 6, text number 24. That's Canto 7, Chapter 6, text number 24. And this is just to be clear. Just like Chaitanya Mahaprabhu was not saying Jare dekho tare koho to his someone extremely advanced or rarefied. Same thing here. Prahlad Maharaj is giving this instruction not to great sages in the forest. He's speaking this to the children of demons who are his own age and on the surface totally unqualified to follow this instruction, right? And yet this is what he says. So please repeat after me. Tasmat sarveshu bhuteshu dayam kuruta sauhridam bhavamasuram unmuchya yaya tushyatyadokshaja tasmat sarveshu bhuteshu dayam kuruta sauhridam bhavamasuram unmuchya yaya tushyatyadokshaja. Let's read Srila Prabhupada's translation and purport, both very beautiful. Therefore, my dear young friends born of demons, please act in such a way that the Supreme Lord, who is beyond the conception of material knowledge, will be satisfied. Give up your demoniac nature and act without enmity or duality. Show mercy to all living entities by enlightening them in devotional service, thus becoming their well-wishers. Show mercy to all living entities by enlightening them in devotional service, thus becoming their well-wishers. Purport. The Lord says in Bhagavad Gita 18:55, Bhaktya mam abhijanati yavan yaschasmi tattvataha. One can understand the Supreme Personality as He is only by devotional service. Prahlad Maharaj ultimately instructs his class friends, the sons of demons, to accept the process of devotional service by preaching the science of Krishna consciousness to everyone. Preaching is the best service to the Lord. The Lord will immediately be extremely satisfied with one who engages in this service of preaching Krishna consciousness. This is confirmed by the Lord Himself in Bhagavad Gita. Nachatasman manushyeshu kaschin me priyakrittama. There is no servant in this world more dear to me than he, nor will there ever be one more dear. If one sincerely tries his best to spread Krishna consciousness by preaching the glories of the Lord and His supremacy, even if he is imperfectly educated, he becomes the dearmost servant of the Supreme Personality of Godhead. This is bhakti. As one performs this service for humanity without discrimination between friends and enemies, the Lord becomes satisfied and the mission of one's life is fulfilled. Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu therefore advises everyone to become a guru devotee and preach Krishna consciousness. Jare dekho tare koho Krishna upadesh. That is the easiest way to realize the Supreme Personality of Godhead. By such preaching, the preacher becomes satisfied, and those to whom he preaches are also satisfied. This is the process of bringing peace and tranquility to the entire world. Bhoktaram yagyatapasam sarvaloka maheshwaram suhridam sarvabhutanam gnatva mam shantim richyati. One is expected to understand these three formulas of knowledge concerning the Supreme Lord, that He is the supreme enjoyer, that He is the proprietor of everything, and that He is the best well-wisher and friend of everyone. A preacher should personally understand these truths and preach them to everyone. Then there will be peace and tranquility all over the world. The word sohridam, friendliness, is very significant in this verse. People are generally ignorant of Krishna consciousness, and therefore to become their best well-wisher, one should teach them about Krishna consciousness without discrimination. Since the Supreme Lord Vishnu is situated in the core of everyone's heart, every body is a temple of Vishnu. One should not misuse this understanding as an excuse for such words as Daridra Narayan. If Narayan lives in the house of Daridra, a poor man, This does not mean that Narayana becomes poor. He lives everywhere, in the houses of the poor and those of the rich. But in all circumstances, he remains Narayan. To think that he becomes either poor or rich is a material calculation. He is always Shad Aishvarya Purna, full in 6 opulences in all circumstances. So a beautiful purport, giving us a impetus, a mission, a sense of mission, right? That each one of us is bound by this instruction of Mahaprabhu. Jare dekho tare koho. None of us can say we're not qualified enough, because the sons of demons are not qualified, right? They may have had wealth, but they certainly didn't have a lot of devotion, not at this time. It was just starting, it was just cultivating. And yet, Prahlad Maharaj tells them, you must enlighten everyone in this world by telling them about Krishna. Okay, so that's our charge. That's our charge from Mahaprabhu. And that's the impetus for this particular seminar. However, the question of how we do this in the right way, what's the intent, is really important. And the question of arrogance is really important. And how do we approach it? And so there's 4 things that I want to mention in regard to intent, and then a couple of things after that to just close it. But 4 things. The first thing, if we remember these 4 things as we put ourselves into this service, right? As we approach the service, as we claim this service as our own, there's at least 4 things that we should think through, we should remember. The first one is quite simple. It's not about me. I remember that when I was, 12 years old or something like that, my mother had seen some capacity and some inclination in me for speaking. And they were running a very small temple out of our home. Today it's bigger, but at the time it was, basically in a glorified living room, like kind of a larger gathering space attached to our home, a converted garage. And so it was a small place. And she told me one day, she said, Ravi, I was not initiated at the time, she said, Ravi, you should give Sunday feast class. And I panicked, as I think most 12-year-olds would, and I said, no, I can't do this. It's not right. There's so many other senior people. I knew enough philosophy to argue my way through this. So I said, there's enough seniors here, and no one in the audience. They're all my parents' age. They don't want to listen to a kid. And I don't have much Shastric knowledge. I haven't memorized many verses. And I'm not very experienced as a speaker. And she said, no, you can do it. And I said, no, I can't. And we were arguing back and forth. And then finally she stopped and she said, Ravi, you really think this is about you, don't you? You think this is about you. This is not about you. It's the problem is because you think it's about you, you think when you sit on the Vyasasana, everyone's looking at you and going, I wonder how old he is, and I wonder how many verses he knows, I wonder how many classes he's given. Whatever they're thinking, this is not about you. This is about Krishna. And you've been asked to do a service, and you're being told that you have the capacity to do that service, then you should do that service. And if you remember that it's not about you, it's not you who's on stage, it's not you who's talking through this, then all these arguments, they disappear, right? They just turn to complete water. They just melt away and flow away. Think about it, right? We can think that, oh, I'm on stage, so all these people are here to look at me and to speak about me, and wow, I must be popular, right? But think about it. Like, would anyone here come to listen if there was no nice prasad afterwards? Would anyone enjoy and be inspired by this class if the deities had not been dressed so beautifully and taken care of so wonderfully? Would you sit in a dirty temple room full of dust and bad smells to listen to a class? Would any of you be even able to hear if there was no one in the sound booth running the mic system or out there on Zoom, online? All of these pieces went into the very fact that I can do my service, right? For the deity pujaris to do their seva, 100 other people have to be able to do their seva in order for them to be able to do theirs. If no one makes the garlands, they can't dress the deities, right? So we appreciate how beautifully they've dressed the deities, but then so many people, the vase makers and the garland makers and the dress makers, and those who've laid everything out, and the people who arranged everything the night before and who cleaned, and one who comes afterwards to do the arti, everyone played a role in order to allow that one devotee to do their, or two devotees to do their seva. The same is true for every service. The same is true for speaking. It's just one piece of the puzzle. Right? It's just one service. It's not more important. It's not less important. Our fear of speaking for Krishna comes from us thinking that it's somehow the most important service because it has a certain dynamic. Our excitement to speak for the wrong reasons also has to do with that misconception that this is a very, very important service, maybe more than other services, right? Both sides, when we pull back, like I was doing at the age of 12, right? Pulling back and saying, I don't want to do that, I can't do that. That's a misunderstanding of what this seva is. And similarly, the sense of like, can I give class? And I didn't get to give class for weeks now. And I've got something to say too, right? That's also a misconception of what the nature of this seva is, right? So this is the starting point, is recognizing, like with any service, it's not about me. It's about Krishna. Okay. Second thing. The most important quality for a speaker is humility. This is the most important quality for any Vaishnav in any service. But it's worth emphasizing for this service in particular because this seva comes with certain peripheral results, some side effects that can make it very easy to start thinking that I'm a step above the rest, right? I'm just a notch higher than other devotees because I'm talking. Or perhaps if we're talking to a general audience, that I'm so much better. They're in ignorance, and I'm a devotee, right? And this makes me so much better. So the nature of the seva, every service has its pitfalls, has its challenges, right? It has its dangerous elements. And this is a big dangerous element of the service of speaking for Krishna, is that we can develop, that it can feed our desire for pratishtha, labha, puja, adoration and distinction and respect. So humility is crucial, okay? But in trying to understand what is humility in the context of a speaker, a teacher for Krishna, what does it mean to be humble as a teacher? I think it's very important to distinguish between low self-esteem or low self-confidence and humility. Now, I want you to think about this and think through it with me. Can anyone And this is just, I'm asking for like really short answers. So what I'll do is I'll repeat them in the mic so that people online can hear. What do you think is the difference between low self-esteem or low self-confidence and humility born of Krishna consciousness? We all know low self-esteem is a problem, right? And we know humility is a virtue. This we understand intuitively. What is the difference? How would you articulate the difference? Yes, Prabhu.
So lowest self-esteem is also comes by
Okay. Go ahead.
Low self-esteem also comes in the category of it's not about me. He thinks that, oh, I am not qualified. And humility is actually I'm dependent on Krishna for my delivery.
Excellent. Very good. So low self-esteem is about who? Yourself, right? It's about me. I'm not good enough. I don't have this ability. I don't think I'm capable. I'm not a good speaker. I don't deserve this. What's the common element in all of those statements? I, right? It's still self-focused. And anything that is focused on ourselves is eventually going to be a cause for suffering. That's the way the world is set up. This is the result of ahankara. Ahankara means a focus on the self, of me. Not the true self, but our constructed idea of self, right? Me as this material body, me as this qualified person or unqualified person, right? That sense of self, when we focus on that, it's going to lead to suffering. And so does low self-esteem or low self-confidence. It leads us to suffering, right? It hampers us. Whereas humility is focused on who? Krishna. How is it focused on Krishna? Krishna is so wonderful. He's so great. I'm so small in comparison to him. He's like the sun, and I'm like a ray of sunshine. He's like the fire, and I'm like a spark. He's like the gold mine, and I'm just like a little earring. It's focused on Krishna. Therefore, low self-esteem leads to pain, and humility leads to wonder. It leads to the achintya. Krishna is inconceivable. He's wonderful. It increases our devotion. Humility grows our devotion. Low self-esteem weakens it. What else? What else is the difference between low self-esteem and humility? Yes, Prabhu.
Prabhu, in low self-esteem, one may think that, oh, if I go wrong in doing this, my prestige will be jeopardized.
Mm-hmm.
But in humility, one may think, oh, even if the world may ostracize me, I am going closer to Krishna.
Yes, yes. So low self-esteem paralyzes us with fear, right? It makes us fearful because we think, what are people going to think? And what will happen to me? And how will people respond? And so we become, the result of low self-esteem or low self-confidence is fear. Whereas the result of humility is fearlessness. It's the opposite. Because you think, as you said, you think, it's not about me, it's about Krishna. And it's Krishna who's being portrayed here, and Krishna who's being glorified, and Krishna should be glorified, and it's my duty to do so. And so I'm going to proclaim it far and wide without fear. And so we see this in Srila Prabhupada's life. His humility led him to cross the ocean at an age when no one should be traveling on a ship liner. It led him to live in places and struggle for so long without resources, completely fearlessly, right? That Krishna will protect me. Avashya rakhibe Krishna, rakshishyati iti vishvasaha, right? That conviction is directly born of humility. It's not born of arrogance. It's not born of low self-esteem. Both arrogance and low self-esteem paralyze us with fear. With arrogance, it's more hidden. We barge into a situation thinking, I'm great. But that person who's arrogant, inside, they're very afraid. And they carry a huge burden. The burden of fear. What if my whole facade crumbles? What if someone looks behind it? Right? It's a big burden to carry, to always keep up this face, to present yourself as the best or as the greatest in one area or another. With the person who has low self-confidence, that fear is very visible, right? So we can spot it. But the arrogant person is just as afraid. They've developed a nice shell to hide that fear, right? The only person who's fearless is one who has true humility because it's focused on Krishna, who recognizes it's not about me. One more distinction. Yes.
I think with humility, we can actually recognize the toolkit that Krishna has given, which you spoke about in the beginning of the class. Whereas if I'm suffering with low self-esteem, I'm going to underutilize the toolkit that Krishna has given me, and I'm never going to be useful as much as I would have.
Excellent. Really nice. I mean, this is like easily the most brilliant audience in the United States. This is why ISV is such a special place, right? And so a very important point that low self-esteem obscures our own assets and qualities, who we are. Not only does it obscure Krishna, it obscures us. We can't see the toolkit that Krishna has given us. We refuse to see it. Whereas humility is grounded in honesty. Humility is grounded in honesty. It begins with an honest assessment of who I am. What tools has Krishna given me to serve him? And when we recognize what those tools are, whatever they are in our lives, it may be speaking, it may be playing football for Krishna, right? Whatever tools Krishna has given us, when we recognize those tools and we say, this is my capacity, and we embrace it, then we can do so much. We can be fearless in service for Krishna. Right? So it helps us recognize who we are. Okay, I think there was one more very eager hand, so let's go there. And then we move on. Yeah. Yes, go ahead.
Hare Krishna. I think humility comes out of gratitude, and low self-esteem comes out of attitude.
Nice, I like that. Low self-esteem comes from an attitude, and humility comes from gratitude. Right? So one of the results of humility is gratitude. The result of low self-esteem or low self-confidence is often bitterness. Right? We're bitter about the world, we're bitter about ourselves because we know we're worth more. Every living entity knows that it has the brilliance of 1,000 suns, right? We've got that power in us, and when we can't utilize it, it makes us bitter inside. It gives us pain. Whereas humility gives us gratitude, that we think, wow, I'm so small, and yet Krishna is doing so much with me, right? He's wanting to use me in his service. Okay, one more just because he's my son. Yes.
So in low self-esteem, like you say, I'm not worth it, but with humility, you realize your true position, that I'm not this low, but I'm actually this low.
Yes, excellent. So low self-esteem says, I'm not worth it. Humility understands, this is who I am. And so this is the last thing I actually wanted to say, which goes right into it. What Chaitanya said here is low self-esteem means I cannot do this. Right? Low self-esteem, low confidence says I cannot do this. And humility says I am not the one doing this. There's a big difference between these two. I cannot do this is a denial of who we are and what the instructions that Krishna and Guru have given us. I cannot do this. Humility is, I am not the one doing this. Prakrite kriyamanani gunai karmani sarvasha ahankara vimudhatmak kartaham iti manyate. Humility means I am not the doer. It's Krishna who's the doer. One empowers us and the other flattens us, right? It weakens us. So humility in the context of teaching, in the context of speaking for Krishna, it's very important to recognize that distinction and to cultivate true humility. And one of the best ways to do that, and I've mentioned this before, the best ways to be honest with ourselves is by always having people in our lives who can tell us the way things are with ourselves, give us honest feedback, and we can trust that feedback. This comes not from me, but from Sachinandan Maharaj. Years ago in Radhadesh, I asked him, I said, Maharaj, how does one remain humble? Please give me, in just a minute or two, tell me your realization on this. And he said, the best way to remain humble. He said, in fact, all great people in this world who have managed that is because they have had people in their lives who can tell them things the way they are, and they can trust those people. Asking ourselves to maintain our own humility is a very tall order. It's nearly impossible because we don't recognize when our stance, when our mindset starts to change. This is why we need others. This is why Sangha is so important. But most of the time when we get feedback in this world, we don't know what to make of it. We think this person is praising me, but we don't know why. They could be flattering me. They could be, perhaps they're going to ask a favor in the next sentence. And so we're ready for that coming. Or maybe if they're criticizing us, we don't know why. Maybe they're envious. Maybe they're wanting to pull us down. Maybe they were the ones who wanted to be doing what we were doing, right? So we don't know. Is there self-interest? Is there envy? And that's why it's so important to have people in our lives we can trust, that when they give us praise, we know, yes, that was a job well done. I tried my best, and I did a good job. And when they give us some correction, we can think through and we can say, yeah, I need to improve there. I'll give you one example from my own life, right? That was one of these moments for me of having someone there who I could trust. This was years ago, my first job. It was as a temporary professor, a visiting professor at the University of Florida in Gainesville. And I was very lucky because I was living in Krishna House and eating Krishna lunch and teaching. Right? It was my first year teaching, really intense. And on the weekends, we would go with the devotees to Alachua for the Sunday feast. And so Monday through Friday, you serve Krishna lunch. Saturday was cleanup day, kitchen cleanup day. And then Sunday was our reward. We'd go to the feast. And Ritadvaja Maharaj was running Krishna House at that time in Gainesville. Perhaps some of you may know him. And I remember he was driving the car one day, and I was sitting in the back seat, and he turned around and he said, Radhika, are you planning to get married? And I said, well, I don't know, Maharaj. Maybe I should stay brahmachari. Maybe I should get married. And he said, do you want to be a professor, right? And I said, yes. And he said, okay, if you want to be a professor and you want to live out there in the world, you need to get married. And I said, yeah, I think you're right. Otherwise, I might end up marrying one of my students. And Maharaj said, no, you're too smart to do that. You're not going to marry one of your students. You'll just end up with one of your students. And he said, then it's going to cause you so much pain, and that girl is going to get so much pain. You're not going to marry her because you know that you can only be happy with a devotee. But you'll end up with someone. It'll ruin your reputation, as an academic. It's going to ruin their life. It's going to ruin your life. You need to get married. That was like, right? That was really heavy for me at that time. But I knew it was coming from someone who I could trust to tell me the truth. He had no benefit in me getting married or in staying single, right? There was no advantage he was going to get. He knew I was there for just a year. I had developed a relationship of trust with him, and he told me an instruction that struck home and shifted the course of my life. It created clarity. So it was still a year, 2 years, I think, until I got married. It was my next job at Center College in Kentucky. But having that relationship in our life, those kinds of relationships, we don't need many. It doesn't have to be a whole, committee of 25 people. It can just be a few devotees we have some real relationship with, right? And whom we can trust to give us good advice. So just on a practical level, humility is born from good association, essentially, from meaningful association. Okay. The third thing. There's 4. A big, big part of humility is that when we are talking as speakers, we leave our personal agenda behind. We leave our personal agenda behind. This is true on the grandest level and on the smallest level. First, on the grand. First, on a grand level. Srila Prabhupada's, perhaps one of his most famous phrases, is the 3 words, as it is. Right? This is, if there's one thing that's like Prabhupada's trademark, it's as it is. Right? Bhagavad Gita as it is. And he asked us over and over again to present Krishna as it is. To be genuine, but most importantly, to be faithful to Guru, to Parampara, to Krishna in what we contain. And so he repeatedly criticized those who inserted their own agendas into their translations or commentaries on Bhagavad Gita or other scriptures, who said things like, no, it's not Krishna we need to surrender to, but the spirit within Krishna, or the spirit behind Krishna, or ourselves as Krishna. Right? Prabhupada said, no, take the direct meaning, see what is being said and repeat it as it is. That's a huge responsibility on the part of any teacher, any speaker. It's in fact our biggest responsibility. Can you imagine what would have happened had Hanumanji, as a messenger to Mother Sita, decided to change the message along the way? If he had gone to her and said, it was a real struggle jumping across the ocean. I barely did it. One person, I don't know how the rest of the army is going to get across. We're going to try our best, but you should be prepared for a worst case scenario in case this doesn't happen. If he had thought creatively and offered his own message, can you imagine what would have happened to Mother Sita? Every living entity is the energy of the Lord, like Sita Devi, separated from Krishna. And if we show up and instead of giving Lord Ramachandra's message, we insert our own agendas into it, can you imagine what would happen to that living entity? We are playing with their future. We are playing with their destiny. We're toying with them. We're manipulating them. And the position of a teacher, of a speaker, is very powerful. Not in terms of wealth, not in terms of weapons. It's powerful because you have the ability to affect the way people think. And that affects everything else. And so whatever context we get up there to speak in, whether it's a school presentation or a discussion or dialogue to an interfaith group or Srimad Bhagavatam class or Bhagavad Gita class, we have to recognize that wherever we stand up to speak, we are standing or sitting on the Vyasasana. That's the seat of Vyasa. It's not our seat. It belongs to someone else, and we've been invited to occupy it for a little bit of time because someone has put faith in us that we can properly represent Vyasadeva. Speaking is the process of kirtanam, the 9 processes of devotional service. Kirtanam. An element of kirtanam is speaking for Krishna. It's of course kirtan also in the traditional sense, but the exemplar of kirtanam is who? Shukadeva Goswami. He's a speaker, he's a teacher, right? So this is that process, and he's the son of Vyasadeva. This is his family's right. Vyasadeva, Shukadeva Goswami, it's their seat. It belongs to them. And we're in someone else's home. We're in someone else's seat. So it's our responsibility to speak on their behalf, not our own. To present the message as it is. That's on a grand level, right? It's recognizing that we have to represent Guru Krishna Parampara as it is. But this idea of not having your own agenda is also true on a small scale. Namely, we never use the Vyasasana or the platform as a speaker to promote our own agenda or to speak about our pet peeve, whatever it might be. We never use the Vyasasana as an excuse to philosophically point a finger at someone we don't like. We don't use the Vyasasana as an opportunity to make a general point about something that we are politically engaged in, we have an issue with. People are very smart, and they can pick up very quickly when they're in the middle of someone else's argument. And I've seen this so many times on the Vyasasana. Someone is making a point that is couched as a general point, but they're really actually talking to him, right? Why? Because they have an ongoing fight going on. That's a personal agenda that we've inserted. It may be couched in the perfect philosophy, but it's pointing fingers. It's using the Vyasasana for something that it's never meant to be used for. I've been in the situation where I've come to a temple and someone has asked me, said, you know, if you could talk about this topic, it would be really helpful because we really need to hear this, right? What they actually mean is they really need to hear this. So can you talk about humility or forgiveness or whatever? And I found that whenever I've done that, it falls flat. No one hears it. They hear it, but they don't actually hear it because people are intelligent. They recognize that there's an agenda here. We're in the middle of someone else's argument, and they don't want to be there. That's not why they come to hear. They're coming to hear about Krishna. And it goes back to this. You've shifted it from being about Krishna to being about something else that's happening. So when we get up to speak, we recognize that I'm speaking with a sense of responsibility and that I have one responsibility, and that's it. To glorify Krishna in whatever way is most suitable for my audience. That's it. And when we do that, everyone's agendas are satisfied. It's like Krishna taking the one grain of rice and eating it from Draupadi's pot, and everyone's satisfied, right? We glorify Krishna, we try to serve him, and everyone's agendas are met. The one devotee is really happy because they got their point, and the next person is happy because they got their point, and everyone hears what they need to hear. Not because we know what everyone needs to hear, but because Krishna works through us. when we represent Krishna, Krishna is working through us. Okay, last point in terms of setting intention. Most of what we teach, most of what we convey to our audience actually has nothing to do with the words we use or the content of our class. Teachers will tell you that there is something called the hidden curriculum. You know this? The hidden curriculum? There is the explicit curriculum. Say you're teaching a university course, there's a syllabus. The syllabus says, by the end of this course, you should be able to do X, Y, and Z. I will teach you A, B, and C. We'll talk about these 3 religions, and you will know the basics, the 5 pillars of Islam, and the 4 noble truths of Buddhism, and the 5 main principles of the Gita, right? That's your explicit curriculum. Most people, students who learn that, how much do they actually remember? Very little, right? There's a few things. If you take a general education course, there's a few things that stick with you here and there. You might remember 1 of the 4 noble truths of Buddhism and 2 of the pillars of Islam. And if you take that as the marker of your success, you'll be very upset as a teacher, because very few people actually carry the details of the content. There's what you say explicitly in the syllabus, and then there's what is never said that's behind it, which is the hidden curriculum. And that is how the teacher models what they're teaching. How you respond to questions, how you approach the subject. You know, if someone in my field, if someone's teaching religious studies, they're teaching a religion, if they're teaching that religion with respect as something worthy of taking seriously, students will take that away. And it will affect how they study religion, how they treat religion for the rest of their lives. If a teacher speaks about the Bhagavad Gita and Krishna with respect, with enthusiasm, with conviction, with humility, students carry that. And vice versa, if someone teaches about a religion with skepticism and with dismissal and cynicism, religions, they just, cause violence in the world. They don't have to say any of that. But that's what students take away from the course. And that's what they will keep for the rest of their lives. Not the facts and figures. The professors, the teachers, the speakers' character, their relationship to what is being taught, their response, how they respond to the audience, that's the hidden curriculum. It's about character. And this is why Srila Prabhupada says over and over and over again that no one can teach unless they practice. Chaitanya Mahaprabhu says, Achar and Prachar. Prabhupada gives a famous example. If you're smoking, you can't tell people not to smoke. He gives the story of Gandhiji, right? Someone came to him and said, a mother with their child, and said, can you please tell this child to not eat so many sweets? And he said, yes, come back in a week and I will tell him. And she came back in a week. And he said, son, don't eat so many sweets. And he said, oh, yes, Gandhiji, I won't. And he stopped, or he reduced. And the mother came back a week later and said, your words had so much effect. But why didn't you just tell him the first time? Why did you make us come back? And he said, at that time, I was eating too many sweets myself. Right? But I can't teach unless I actually practice. My words are not going to have impact. So as speakers, it is our character. It is our relationship with what we are teaching. It is our relationship with the audience. It is how we respond to questions. It is our humility. It is our character as a person. That's the most important part. Less important are the brilliant points we make and the grand ideas that we convey. It's surprising, it's humbling to recognize how little of that stays with your students, with an audience. All the things we spend so much time getting just right, the phrases and the words and so on, those are important. We'll talk a full 2 hours on that. But it's worth remembering how little people remember that and how much they carry this. And so I've discovered in my years of teaching and speaking the 3 most valuable words for a teacher. Do you know what they are? At least for me. I don't know. Right? Those 3 words. I don't know. And if we're able to stand before an audience and say, I don't know. I don't know, but I can find out for you. I don't know, but I'll think about it. I don't know, but I did hear this from this person. Maybe you can ask them more. Just those 3 words, I don't know, have such a powerful impact on an audience. Why? Because they convey all of this. They convey the humility of the speaker. They convey that the speaker has no agenda. They convey the character of the speaker. And they're very difficult words to use when you're on a stage and people are expecting you to know everything. But boy, is it such a relief. Once you get used to using those words, I don't know. It allows you to do the service without fear, is to recognize I have something to give and the rest, I don't know. But I can learn. I can learn sometimes from my audience. I can learn in due course of time. I can direct people to others who might know more. And students actually remember that. Audiences remember that. They remember the character of the person speaking. Okay. So, with these 4 things, as setting our intent, okay, it's not about me, it's about Krishna, cultivating a genuine sense of humility, not including our own agenda, not letting our own agenda drive or mix, contaminate our presentation, and cultivating our own character so that we speak from a place of genuineness, of authenticity. If we do these things well, if we carry this intent, then we're going to be successful in due course of time. Our speaking, our teaching will have an impact. It'll hit home. It'll hit people's hearts. It'll change hearts. And the natural result of that, when people get knowledge, there are few things that make someone as grateful as when they get knowledge. It creates more gratitude than if you give someone money. It creates more gratitude than if you give them a position. It creates more gratitude than if you give them a beautiful gift, a physical gift. When people get knowledge, they feel freedom. They feel power. They feel like they're wealthy. All those other things, they feel like they have them when they have knowledge. Right? This is why it's such a big gift, giving someone Srimad Bhagavatam or Bhagavad Gita or any of Srila Prabhupada's books. You're giving knowledge. And the result of speaking for Krishna as it is, without an agenda, with authenticity, is that people are very grateful. And they express that gratitude by honoring the person who's giving it. And so that's the last thing I want to talk about. I'll take questions very soon. That's the last thing I want to talk about, or actually the second to last thing, is how do we handle success in this service? It doesn't take long. It's not like you have to speak for Krishna for a lifetime and then people honor you and respect you. No, even just a few words, one nice class about Krishna, and people are grateful, genuinely grateful. They offer their heart, and they give their respect. And how do you handle that? The first thing is something that I just want to mention, but not say much more because we've already talked about it. Right? First thing is recognizing, remembering always that line, it's not about me. I remember I was giving a seminar one time, and it was going very well. And it just so happened that my spiritual master, Hanumat Preshaka Swami, called me that morning, like it was in between a seminar. He called me in the morning, and he said, "How are you, Radhika?" I said, "I'm doing well." "And what are you doing?" "I'm doing a seminar." I told him. And he said, "Have you seen the movie Life of Brian?" He asked me. I said, "Yes, I've seen the Life of Brian." And he said, "Do you know what it's about?" Essentially, Life of Brian is a Monty Python film, and it describes this man whose name is Brian, and basically people mistake him for Jesus. So he goes through life, and somehow people get confused that this guy is actually Jesus, and they show up at his door, thousands, praising him and worshiping him, and his mother is irritated to no extent. So she opens the door, and they go, "Mary, Mother of God," and she ushers unspeakable curse words and slams the door. And then he's so panicked he runs, and as he's running, he loses a slipper. And people behind him pick it up and go, a sign from our Savior. And the whole movie's like this. And he turns into this whole Jesus figure without ever intending to be so. And that's all Maharaj said. He said, "You remember the Life of Brian?" He said, "Just remember who you are. Remember who you are. You're not Jesus. You're Brian. Right? That's all you are. You're Brian." And that's the first step to dealing with honor and respect that comes, is to recognize, I'm Brian. And it just so happens that sometimes Brian, there's 1,000 people running after him. But it doesn't change who he is. He's just Brian. He's not Jesus. So that's the first. We've already talked about this. The second thing is knowing our own capacity for service. Knowing our capacity for service. With any seva, when we get success, that success leads to so many other things. It leads to honor, to respect, to more opportunities for that service, etc., etc. And we have to ourselves recognize this is how much I can handle spiritually. This is how much respect, how much fame, how much opportunity I can handle without exploding myself. So often we find this with speakers over and over again. They become too successful too quickly, and we don't know how to handle it. This happens with celebrities all the time. You've seen this? They become like, someone discovers them, and off they go like a rocket, and they've gone from being a penniless artist to a multimillionaire overnight, to being the most wanted person on the planet. And then what happens? We can't handle the stress, can't handle the pressure, can't handle the limelight. They start saying things that they regret. And so it happens also amongst devotees within the devotee community. We get opportunities, we can't handle them, and speakers start to say things that are not quite as it is, but more creative. They reject guidance from authority. We develop arrogance. So many things start to go wrong, right? And pretty soon, the whole thing comes crashing down. So we have to recognize our own capacity. This is how much I can handle spiritually. This is how much I can digest. Just like when you're eating a good meal, right? Whatever's your favorite, ras malai, gulab jamun, puris, whatever's your favorite, you look forward to that. That's your thing. But you have to recognize your limits, right? 1 gulab jamun, 2, 3, and pretty soon that joy is going to turn into suffering. And so also with such opportunities. Again, I'll just share an example from my own journey. Is, many years ago, for many years, devotees had been saying, can we work with you to create an online media presence? Right? We'll take what you say and you can create short YouTube videos and we'll create a following, a large following. You have the capacity to do millions, right? And we'll take this clip and that clip and let us do this for you. And for myself, I've recognized for a long time that I don't have the capacity to handle that, right? Not at this time, at least. It's too much of the public eye, and my concern is that what I speak ceases to become genuine because I'm constantly talking for a camera. There are other devotees who do this in an amazing way. They're teaching thousands exclusively online. They've got followings of millions, literally. And they do amazing seva. But for me, if I were to move in that direction at this point in life, I wouldn't be able to handle it. The pressure, the intrusion on family, there's so many different things, right? Not to mention the notoriety that comes from being a media personality. Or recognizing all these invitations are there. If I take too many, then the quality will suffer, my capacity will suffer, my mood of seva will suffer, because I'll cease to become grateful for those opportunities, to be able to come and speak like this. It'll be something I take for granted. Whatever it is in our own life, we need to know our capacity to handle the side effects of that service. Not to handle the service. Our capacity for seva is unlimited. But there's side effects that come with every service when we're not able to do it 100% purely, when we're working our way towards all of this, to purifying our intention and all of that. There's certain side effects that come with every seva. And knowing what our capacity is to digest those side effects, that's very important in terms of handling the honor and the prestige and so on. So, knowing who we are and knowing our limits, our capacity to handle the side effects. If we do these two things, then we can take whatever honor and respect that Krishna sends us our way as a side effect, or that people give as an expression of gratitude, we can take that and we can receive it and we can reciprocate it. Here's what I mean by receiving and reciprocating. When someone gives us a compliment for a job well done, in any seva, but here we're speaking specifically about our service as speakers and teachers. When someone gives us a compliment for a job well done, it's our duty to receive it, to thank that person, to listen to what they're saying, to honor what they're saying, to receive it, to thank them for it, and then perhaps to return a compliment. So often, as devotees, we struggle with receiving things. Someone says, not even just as devotees, in society in general, right? Someone says, that was really, really wonderful prasad. You really cooked. Oh, well, you know, it's like, actually the salt was too much, wasn't it? And we can't take it. That was an excellent class. You gave a wonderful, that was such a good, no, actually, no, I really, and we deny it, right? Or we change the topic, and what are we doing when we do that? Someone says that to us. What are we doing when we deny it, when we ignore it, when we change the topic? We're disrespecting them, right? Remember the exchanges of love from Nectar of Instruction? Dadati pratigrihnati guhyam akhyati pritchati bhunkte bhojayate chaiva shadvidam priti lakshanam. The 6 symptoms of love, and therefore the 6 kinds of association. Dadati pratigrihnati. When someone gives us a gift, imagine this scenario, okay? Forget the speaking. Someone brought a gift for us. Maybe it's our birthday, maybe a special occasion. And they said, here, Prabhu, have this gift. And you said, no. Actually, no, I don't deserve this. Give it to someone else. That person deserves it. There. How would that person feel? Be horrible, right? It would be like terrible for them. The gift of words is just as powerful, meaningful, perhaps even more so than a gift of things. When someone offers their words, dadati, what's the proper response? Pratigrihnati. Not rejection. The proper response is pratigrihnati. If we want to practice amanina, not wanting respect, how do we do that? Manadena, by giving respect. Not by hiding from it, by returning it. Bhunkte bhojayate. Right? That's what we're given. That's what we're told how to handle what we're given, is to give back. Right? So then, if we do this with that frame of mind, when we receive something that's a genuine appreciation of our service, we can thank the devotee, we can appreciate it, and we can maybe appreciate something about them. And that completes the circle. That creates association. Whereas if we reject it, we are cutting off association. So, in that mood, then, of giving and receiving, then we can take that credit. We've held on to it. We've offered some back to that person. And then we offer some up to Guru, to Parampara, and to Krishna. Right? You offer some back, and you offer some up. And in this way, then, we can digest it. We can accept it. We can receive it. And it doesn't become a cause for our fall down in spiritual life. Okay, the very last thing, and then we conclude with time for questions. What do we do when things don't go well as a speaker or teacher? So far, we've been talking about success and its after effects. But I want to talk a little bit about how do we calibrate our intention when things don't go right. We don't give the class that we wanted to give. We forget. We lose our train of thought. It goes off the rails. We end up saying things that we didn't mean to say. What if it's a perfect class, just the one that we wanted to give, and it falls like a lead balloon on people, and no one gets it, and no one appreciates it and understands it, and it goes over their heads, or something happens, right? It's not appreciated. it's not received, it's not effective. What do we do then? Well, two things, at least two things. One is we be grateful that Krishna gave me an opportunity to purify my intention. Here's a question to ask ourselves. Whatever seva we're doing, if Krishna took away all the respect, appreciation, prestige, positive feedback, honor that we get around that service as a result of doing that service, if Krishna pulled that all away, would we still do the service? Would we still take pleasure in our service? Would we still be committed to that seva? That's a question that has bothered me for many, many years as a speaker and teacher. What if Krishna took away all the side effects, all the benefits that come with that seva? Would there be anything left of me as a devotee? Would I still be enthused to serve Krishna? Would I still do my seva for the Lord? When we have those opportunities, when things fall flat, those are real gifts from Krishna for us to test that question, for us to discover the answer to that question. Otherwise, we can't answer that question. It's too difficult. We think, oh yes, of course, I would still love Krishna, even if everyone dishonored me. I'd still love him. I still love this service. But we can't really know. We can't know until Krishna actually takes it away. Then we see what we're really made of as devotees. Is there substance there, or is it an empty shell? And so when those opportunities come, where our service falls flat, where the class just doesn't make it, those are the opportunities. We be grateful for them and recognize Krishna's giving me a chance here to purify my intention, to see what I'm actually made of as a devotee, and to refocus and to recognize I tried my best to glorify Krishna. And it doesn't always work out. But remember, it's not about me. Right? It's about him. The second thing is we use that opportunity to improve, to think about what could I have done better. And often it's not, there's very few occasions where our service will completely fall flat. I mean, it happens, but it's not frequently that like it goes so badly that it's just humiliating. Usually, it's a matter of something small and intangible that maybe even half the people didn't catch, right? But after a class, you're thinking, I don't know, there's something that just didn't quite sit right. Somehow I didn't quite make it. The connection wasn't there. I didn't feel Krishna present. Something was just not right. And it's really worthwhile to think through that, not as a self-flagellating exercise. We've already talked about the difference between low self-esteem and humility, but as an exercise in improvement, to think, what was it exactly? Was I too confident? Was I not confident enough? Did I lose my train of thought? Do I need to better organize my points? Was it not interesting enough? Was it boring? We do a debrief, a deconstruction afterwards, and put the pieces together. And that can be a source for great improvement, right? So the first is recognizing this is an opportunity to purify my intention and recognize what I actually am as a servant of Krishna. This is why Krishna gives me these opportunities. And secondly, to use it as a constructive exercise to figure out how do I need to improve for next time. Because as I said, every service is sadhana. You do it over and over and over again, and you get better and better and better at it. You give the same class 100 times, you get better and better and better at it. That's how we improve. Abhyasa yoga, Krishna says, by the yoga of practice. Okay, so we've talked about intention and how is it that we shape our intention in a way that we make this actually a service for the Lord. And I talked about 4 components to that, how it's not about me, it's cultivating humility and the difference between humility and low self-confidence and the different results from that. We talked about purifying the agenda, making sure there's no personal agendas, big or small, in the agenda. And then the idea of the hidden curriculum and how it's through our character of who we are that our point lands home and that we have an effect on our students. We do all this, we get some success. The natural result of that is honor and respect and some side effects from our seva, some perks that come with the job. Every service comes with perks. We talked about how we deal with those perks, how we remind ourselves, I'm not Jesus, I'm Brian, right? And we we recognize our own capacity for seva, right? That this is the limits of how much I can handle the side effects. I can't digest more perks than this. And we keep it to that until our capacity increases. And it will increase over time. There's no doubt about it. Our capacity for seva is great. In this human body, we've barely scratched the surface of our capacity for service, right? So there's a lot. It'll grow over time. But we do that in a systematic, gradual, reasonable fashion, right? Rather than like that. And then if we do these things, then how do we receive honor and respect as Vaishnavas? We talked about that. Not denying, not rejecting, but receiving. And then passing it on. Back to the person who gave it, and onward and upward to Guru and to Krishna. And finally, what do we do when things don't go well? And so I want to end this section on intention with one beautiful little thing, which I think brings us all together. And this is, if we could please pull up Prabhupada's prayer called Markine Bhagavat Dharma, which he wrote on the Jaladuta coming into the United States. And I think this prayer just beautifully encapsulates every single point that we've discussed in regard to cultivating the right intention as a speaker for Krishna. So, Markine Bhagavat Dharma. Prabhupada's mood here is really meaningful and intense. And as we read that prayer together, we'll just read it in the English. I'll read it out for you. You can follow along. As we do that, I want you to think through what we've talked about and how Prabhupada is exemplifying those qualities, how he exemplifies the difference between low self-esteem and humility, right? How he exemplifies this idea that it's not about me, how he shows, how he asks for the character to teach Krishna consciousness. And so let's read this together. So we won't sing here the song, but let's just read the translation here. I'll read it out loud. Please follow along. My dear Lord Krishna. Oh, that'll take a long time if we do repeat. So please just, by follow along, I misspoke. Just read silently alongside with me. My dear Lord Krishna, you are so kind upon this useless soul. but I do not know why you have brought me here. Now you can do whatever you like with me. But I guess you have some business here. Otherwise, why would you bring me to this terrible place? Most of the population here is covered by the material modes of ignorance and passion. Absorbed in material life, they think themselves very happy and satisfied, and therefore they have no taste for the transcendental message of Vasudeva. I do not know how they will be able to understand it. But I know your causeless mercy can make everything possible, because you are the most expert mystic. How will they understand the mellows of devotional service? O Lord, I am simply praying for your mercy so that I will be able to convince them about your message. All living entities have come under the control of the illusory energy by your will, and therefore, if you like, by your will, they can also be released from the clutches of illusion. I wish that you may deliver them. Therefore, if you so desire their deliverance, then only will they be able to understand your message. The words of Srimad Bhagavatam are your incarnation, and if a sober person repeatedly receives it with submissive oral reception, then he will be able to understand your message. It is said in the Srimad Bhagavatam, Sri Krishna, the personality of Godhead, who is the Paramatma, super soul in everyone's heart, and the benefactor of the truthful devotee, cleanses the desire for material enjoyment from the heart of the devotee who relishes his messages, which are in themselves virtuous when properly heard and chanted. By regularly hearing the Srimad Bhagavatam and rendering service unto the pure devotee, loving service unto the glorious Lord, thank you, who is praised with transcendental songs, is established as an irrevocable fact. At that time, loving service is established in the heart. The modes of passion and ignorance and lust and desire disappear from the heart. Then the devotee is established in goodness and he becomes happy. Thus established in the mode of goodness, the man rejuvenated by loving service to the Lord gains liberation from material association and comes to know scientifically of the personality of Godhead. Thus the knots of the heart and all misgivings are cut to pieces. The chain of fruitive actions, karma, is terminated when one sees the self as master. He will become liberated from the influence of the modes of ignorance and passion, and thus all inauspicious things accumulated in the core of the heart will disappear. How will I make them understand this message of Krishna consciousness? I'm very unfortunate, unqualified, and the most fallen. Therefore, I am seeking your benediction so that I can convince them, for I am powerless to do so on my own. Somehow or other, O Lord, you have brought me here to speak about you. Now, my Lord, it is up to you to make me a success or failure as you like. O spiritual master of all the worlds, I can simply repeat your message. So if you like, you can make my power of speaking suitable for their understanding. Only by your causeless mercy will my words become pure. I'm sure that when this transcendental message penetrates their hearts, they will certainly feel gladdened and thus become liberated from all unhappy conditions of life. O Lord, I am just like a puppet in your hands. So if you have brought me here to dance, then make me dance. Make me dance. O Lord, make me dance as you like. I have no devotion, nor do I have any knowledge, but I have strong faith in the holy name of Krishna. I have been designated as Bhaktivedanta, and now, if you like, you can fulfill the real purport of Bhaktivedanta. Signed, the most unfortunate, insignificant beggar, A.C. Bhaktivedanta Swami, on board the ship Jaladuta, Commonwealth Pier, Boston, Massachusetts, USA, dated 18th of September, 1965. That line that Srila Prabhupada says is one of my favorites. I think it's like the motto for a speaker in Krishna consciousness. If you like, please make my words suitable for their understanding. Make my words suitable for their understanding. It encapsulates all of this perfectly. Who's doing the making here? Krishna, not me. I'm not the maker. He is. If you like, you make my words. Whose words are they? My words, right? So Krishna's the doer, but I have responsibility. I have a service to do. My words. But then what's the third element in this? Suitable for their understanding. Who's they? The audience. 3 things for a speaker. Krishna, the speaker, the audience. So far, we talked about 2. Krishna and the speaker and the relationship there in clarifying our intention. The next part this afternoon will begin with the 3rd, the audience, suitable for their understanding. What does that mean and how do we do it? Okay, I think that's good for right now. Thank you all so much for your attention. Hare Krishna.
Are you still going to take a couple of questions?
Sure. Is it? Maybe we go, 5 minutes overtime? Is that okay?
Malini, are you bringing scores? We're supposed to have an offering soon, but it would be nice to have the questions right.
Yes,
Contiguous.
that would be
Prabhu,
great.
you had a question. I have a question
Yes.
also.
Yes. Would you like? Okay.
He raised his hand earlier.
Okay. Yes.
Prabhuji, I mean, you have put me in a very good mindset. Thank you very much for your class. I mean, very inspiring.
Yeah, it's okay. We can hear it.
So my question is, I mean, I come to the class and I get into a very nice mindset and I walk out and that message starts to dissolve. I'm a more recent devotee. I'm not like you who's been a devotee the whole life. So how do we hold on to this message as we leave this temple and go out in the real world?
Yeah, such a wonderful question. Really wonderful. How do we hold on to a message that we've received? In our Krishna consciousness, this is speaking for myself. We go through these waves. You have close association with devotees. You hear a wonderful class. You participate in kirtan. You see beautiful deities. You have wonderful prasad. And we feel surcharged. And we can actually operate on the transcendental platform. And then we lose that association. We lose that focus. And we lose the darshan of the deities. And we go on in our world and we start to sink. And then it happens again. And up we go, right? And it creates this sine curve in our life of up and down and up and down. But when the sine curve starts to get flattened, the frequency is increasing or decreasing? I forget. Which one? Increasing, right? The frequency increases and the curve, instead of going, it starts to become like this, more steady, right? When the frequency increases. So whatever it is that helps us rise to that level, the more we increase the frequency of it, the less we'll get those dips. And increasing the frequency may not mean that we have the capacity to come every day and listen to a seminar. Maybe not. But this is why we have to take what we do here and we have to carry that home. And if we can practice the same things in the space of our own home, in our own lives, on our own, with our family, with friends, we can maintain that. It's not going to be exactly the same as coming to the temple, because the temple is a wonderful place. It's an embassy of the spiritual world. But we'll approximate it much better than we're doing now. So that's why Krishna says, by abhyasa, by practice, we can do it. We take the same things that inspire us. What is it? Hearing, right? So we do that hearing every day through Srila Prabhupada's books. We read a verse, we read 2 verses, we read a chapter a day. That's a theme here, isn't it? Chapter a day. So we read a chapter a day, and we develop that taste for hearing. We develop the taste for chanting. We develop this taste for association, for Krishna Prasad. And those dips don't become so deep anymore. And pretty soon, that frequency increases and increases and increases until it becomes steady. And that's called nishtha. That's the platform of steadiness or stability in Krishna consciousness. So it actually works. It really, over the years, it may feel like, oh, I'm still going up and down. But believe me, it's not that the downs aren't as down. It's the difference is not as huge as we start to practice. So that's the key, is we want to practice at home, not just here. Yeah, thank you. Yes, Vaisheshika Prabhu.
Going back to the hidden curriculum, and I should say, what are the ways in which those who are Krishna conscious and then they go out as students into the world to fortify themselves in a random selection of professors who may have cynicism towards something that's important to them? How to deal with that and get through unscathed, or even better, to assimilate a lesson from it and be unscathed?
Yes, a wonderful question. The hidden curriculum is very powerful, and let me give one analogy. If you are in the habit, for example, of watching movies, okay, and say you think, I'm going to select just those ones without explicit bad language, explicit violence, explicit sexual activity, right? Those ones will be fine. What have we done? We've taken away the visible curriculum, the stuff that we don't want to take in. But what we haven't gotten rid of is a hidden curriculum that's present through most films, which is what? That this material world is a place worthy of enjoying. Our senses are the primary source of pleasure, and finding means to gratify our senses, even in subtle ways, is the path to happiness. When something comes in between that, between our happiness and our sense enjoyment, then that's a problem. And we need to struggle and fight to remove that problem from our lives, so again we can peacefully enjoy our senses. That's the hidden curriculum underneath pretty much every film. Yadubar Prabhu made a film where that's not the curriculum. It's called the Hare Krishna movement, or the Hare Krishna, I think it's called, right? So, but that's pretty much everything, right? And so often, just to underscore actually the point underneath Vaisheshika Prabhu's question, which is to say, that's the part that we often don't recognize that we're getting, even when we're trying our best to make whatever engagement we have innocent, right? That there's actually a whole layer, the most important layer, the most impactful one that we cannot get rid of. It's there in the person, in the medium. And so it's there in college, it's there in the university, it's there with professors, and professors convey a love for learning, and they convey enthusiasm for their subject, and they convey determination and all of these good qualities. But then there's also a lot of things that are conveyed that are just the same as what I described. The material world is a place of enjoyment. The main way in which we learn about the material world is through the power of our own mind, the most trustworthy thing in this world is our own intelligence. And when we can figure out something with our own intelligence, the less we rely on God for understanding, explanation, and solace, the better it is. The more independent you are, the stronger of mind you are, if you don't have to rely upon religion, etc. There's a lot of undertones. There is no grand narrative that explains everything in the world. There's no truth with a capital T. What's true for you is true for you, and what's true for me is true for me. All of these things are part of the hidden curriculum. They're there. It's part of the ethos. We could go into this in great amount of detail. We won't. But this is what's called postmodernism, right? There's a certain hidden curriculum. There's an ethos that informs the way we teach. And every generation has a different ethos. It changes over time. The best way to shield ourselves, to protect ourselves, to critique that hidden curriculum is through the regular study of Srila Prabhupada's books, of Shastras. The reason why is because when we do that, when we strengthen our intelligence, we can pinpoint that hidden curriculum. We are not stupid consumers. We're not just letting things flow in and not recognizing what it is we're receiving. Our intelligence becomes sharpened, and we are able to distinguish. One of the biggest gifts of Prabhupada's books is the power of discrimination or discernment, to distinguish reality from illusion. Right? Vedyam vastavamatra vastu shivadam. This is Bhagavatam's promise. What is it, second verse? Right? This is the promise. The ability to distinguish reality from illusion for the welfare of all. And so when we fill ourselves with that hidden curriculum from Prabhupada's books, from the Association of Devotees, it gives us the intelligence and capacity to recognize that elsewhere. And so this is for me going through all these years of college education and years of study. Here's my litmus test. Here's my litmus test to assess where I'm at in terms of being affected by that association, by the hidden curriculum. Who do I want, in whose association do I feel the happiest? In whose association do I feel the most embarrassed? That's one. Second question, how do I measure my success? We all measure our success based on other people. What do I use as the measure of my success? So two things. In whose association am I genuinely comfortable and happy, and with whom am I embarrassed to be? And secondly, how do I measure my success? Against whom do I measure my success? And if the answer to both of these questions ends up being people you don't want to be like, then we really need to look at our association very carefully. This is, in other words, it's crucial that we do an association, an audit of our association regularly. We figure out what is our association and we find some measure. Because my service is so often speaking in professional and personal contexts, one of my measures for myself is, can I sit in a Bhagavatam class given by anyone and learn something and appreciate it and gain something from it? So often I have found others in my line of work who lose the capacity to hear from others because they are so accomplished at speaking and so knowledgeable. It can be like, oh gosh, this person can't even pronounce the Sanskrit. Like, I'm supposed to listen to his class? Or do they even know the historical background behind what they're saying? or they really messed up that point, right? And the capacity to hear disappears. And here's what's really scary, is the capacity not only to hear from other devotees goes away, but eventually the capacity to hear from Shastra starts to disappear. The capacity to hear from Prabhupada, to hear from Guru, starts to disappear. So for me, that's been one of my personal litmus tests, is to say, it doesn't matter how new the Vaishnava is, how poor their Sanskrit pronunciation might be, whatever might be the issue. Can I sit in the class? They're sitting on the Vyasasana. They are representing who? Vyasadeva. Therefore, they've got a message that is relevant to me. And if I can't sit in that class and take away a message that I can use in my own life and I can gain from that, then I've lost the capacity for devotee association. I've lost something very important. And I need to do a shift in my association. I need to do an association audit and fix that, right? So find for yourself whatever is your litmus test. But in general, these two things we find shifting as a result of hidden curriculum is we start to gauge our success based on measures that people around us give. This is what it means to be successful. And it means if we follow those measures, we become like them. And we realize, oh, I didn't want to be like them at all. But it's usually too late by the time we figure that out. Who do I measure my success against? And in whose association am I genuinely fulfilled to be in? Conversely, in whose association am I embarrassed? Okay, does that help? Okay, thank you.
Adi, Adi. Thank you very much, Radhika Raman Prabhu, for that feast. Something that actually will be more like the bags of Raghava that Damayanti made, that Chaitanya Mahaprabhu could and did feast upon every day for a year until they brought another one. And that's just the first part out of 3. Now we're going to rearrange the room because we have an offering to make. This is an offering from our collective work together to distribute Srila Prabhupada's books and also to bring the results of that in closer to devotional service, the bhakti community. So we're going to do the usual. We'll move the seats out of the way so we can make an arc around Srila Prabhupada's Vyasasana, and then we'll hear from the leaders of these 2 teams. So let's please work together to move everything, and you can leave the carpet down, but just move the asana so we have a space. And we'll reconvene here around Prabhupada's Vyasasana in 4 minutes and 32 seconds, so please count down.
Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare.
Krishna Hare Hare. Dear devotees in every part of the building, we're going to make an offering, and it's from all of us together. As His Grace Radhika Raman Prabhu mentioned, every service matters, and it all goes towards this offering. So we can all be present here. We're going to start with the offering of Bhakti community, and then from our Sankirtan team. Hare Krishna.
Dear Srila Prabhupada, please accept our most humble obeisances at the dust of your lotus feet. All glories to your divine grace. We are gathered here to offer the results of our monthly Sankirtan festival for Bhadra Purnima 2022, titled Save the Earth. From Srimad Bhagavatam 7.6.24. If one sincerely tries his best to spread Krishna consciousness by preaching the glories of the Lord and His supremacy, even if he is imperfectly educated, he becomes the dearmost servant of the Supreme Personality of Godhead. This is bhakti. As one performs this service for humanity without discrimination between friends and enemies, the Lord becomes satisfied and the mission of one's life is fulfilled. Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu therefore advised everyone to become a Guru devotee and preach Krishna consciousness. Yare dekha tare kaha Krishna upadesh. That is the easiest way to realize the Supreme Personality of Godhead. By such preaching, the preacher becomes satisfied, and those to whom he preaches are also satisfied. This is the process of bringing peace and tranquility to the entire world. The Bhakti community is a community for spiritual seekers who are interested in learning about the timeless wisdom and practices of Bhakti Yoga, the yoga of love and gratitude. With blessings of His Grace Vaisheshika Prabhu and Her Grace Nirakula Mataji, the Bhakti community continue to inspire newcomers to pursue Bhakti through various weekly programs. The Bhakti On program continued the Bhakti lessons from the World Series that was attended by over 50 newcomers. The topics included We Need Beauty, Is Bhakti Truly Yoga, The Magic of Showing Up, Rule the Airwaves, etc. On Thursdays, Bhakti Circle, Discover Yourself, a 32-week program that systematically introduces Bhakti Yoga to newcomers, was conducted. The topics discussed include Does the divine have a form? Spiritual form or deity? Supreme consciousness, the unseen friend. Pursuing the spiritual world and spiritual relationships. Around 25 newcomers attended these programs. On Fridays, Success Sadhana continued the Golden Monk series, discussing topics such as You're the most influential person in your life. Are you spiritual? Respect all to be happy. We humans are sponges. What are you absorbing? Around 50 newcomers attended these programs. On Sundays, the Women's Circle program continued the Introduction to Bhagavad Gita series. Around 10 women attended these programs. The new Bhakti community brochure provides a quick, attractive, simplified overview of Bhakti philosophy. We received the first shipment of the brochure that was shared with the book distributors. Distributors liked the handy, attractive brochure that can be used as a nice conversation starter on different topics that may be of interest to the newcomers, such as consciousness, karma, reincarnation, yoga, and meditation, etc. Comunidad Bhakti, the Bhakti community for Spanish-speaking people, continued to meet with newcomers discussing Krishna Katha and chanting through past this MSF. Bhakti Community Manipal University also continued to conduct the Bhakti Circle program. They meet 2 times a week, one session conducted in person at the university and the second session conducted online. The participants really like the casual, interactive sessions that make it easy to understand and discuss the topics. Bhakti community's sole purpose is to associate newcomers with Vaishnavas so that newcomers can progress in Bhakti Yoga. Vaishnava Sangha Lava, or VSL, is a metric that measures how many times a newcomer comes in association with a Vaishnava through a devotional service class. For this MSF, Comunidad Bhakti's goal was to achieve 360 VSLs. We are very happy to report that Comunidad Bhakti surpassed the goal and achieved 920 VSLs. Around 23 newcomers attended Comunidad Bhakti. For this MSF, Bhakti Community Silicon Valley's goal was to achieve 660 VSLs. We are happy to report that Bhakti Community Silicon Valley surpassed the goal and achieved 2,085 VSLs. "152 newcomers attended Bhakti Community Program this MSF. We are eternally indebted and grateful to all the volunteers, room leaders, speakers, mentors, and book distributors who work tirelessly every day to fulfill Srila Prabhupada's mission and spread Krishna consciousness in the Western world. We also want to thank each of our donors who help us maintain the Bhakti community. And finally, our most heartfelt, sincere gratitude to His Grace Vaisheshika Prabhu and Her Grace Nirakula Mataji, because of which the Bhakti community exists, and with their leadership and motivation, it's thriving. Bhakti community gets the opportunity to serve newcomers due to the tireless effort of the book distribution team who introduced Bhakti community to these newcomers. Now Malini Mataji will present the book distribution results.
With respect to books, Team ISV had a goal to distribute at least 2,500 Srimad Bhagavatam sets from Gaur Purnima till today. When the goal is huge, it seems impossible. We have seen devotees taxing their brains for ideas and venues to distribute these sets. Here are some of the highlights of this MSF. Kit Sankirtan team participated enthusiastically again this marathon, and they distributed 31 Srimad Bhagavatam sets and collected $4,640.25 in Lakshmi. From the beginning of the year, after Gaur Purnima till now, Kit Sankirtan team distributed 212 Srimad Bhagavatam sets. Bhakti SF team continues to distribute books in Greater San Francisco and Bay Area, and this MSF, they also distributed books at the Salesforce event in San Francisco. Motel Gita team participated at New Jersey, Baltimore, and Houston conventions enthusiastically. And Motel Gita operations here at ISV dispatched 57,000 books so far this year. Along with the other books, Motel Gita distributed 47 Srimad Bhagavatam sets this Bhadra Purnima. Kirtan Mellows team has restarted their service after the pandemic and is providing personalized services to the newcomers. Just by being ambassadors of goodwill, they distributed 30 Srimad Bhagavatam sets and collected $4,500 in Lakshmi. By your mercy, Srila Prabhupada, we are able to open the channels to send books to Japan and the entire continent of South America. Wisdom of the Sages team, led by His Grace Kaustuba Prabhu and His Grace Raghunath Prabhu, participated in the Bhadra Purnima campaign. They announced the campaign on their podcast for 2 weeks, and the listeners called in to donate or request a set of Srimad Bhagavatam. We were able to send books to listeners in USA, Canada, UK, Brazil, Japan, and also one set to South Korea. In total, they distributed 91 Srimad Bhagavatam sets, and they collected $17,082.17 in Lakshmi. Western Sankirtan team had a huge breakthrough this year by distributing complete sets of Srimad Bhagavatams on the streets and the festivals for the Western audience. The team distributed the sets to one and all without any discrimination. The team covered various national parks, music festivals, farmers markets, art and wine festivals, vegan festivals, Arabic festivals, shopping stores, and the list goes on. The team distributed 243 sets on streets and festivals in USA compared to only 210 sets last year. They collected $11,358 in Lakshmi on the streets. Their team members also helped dispatch 57 sets of Srimad Bhagavatam to other countries like Turkey, South America, and India. So in total, they distributed 500 sets of Srimad Bhagavatam from Gaur Purnima till now. Team Bhagavat Seva continues to have success teaching Shastra through online classes for children and adults. Bhagavat Seva team totally distributed 424 Srimad Bhagavatam sets from the beginning of the year and collected $54,382 in Lakshmi. The corporate Sankirtan team, year-over-year, continue to increase their contribution to this Bhadra Purnima campaign. They are meticulous in their organization and follow-up. They distributed 925 Srimad Bhagavatam sets, and they collected $81,100 in Lakshmi. During the Radhashtami celebrations, in response to a request made by His Grace Vaisheshika Prabhu, ISV devotees profusely sponsored Srimad Bhagavatam sets. On that historic weekend or week, Team ISV collected $145,400 in Lakshmi. As we make this MSF offering, Srila Prabhupada, we are pleased to report that this has been an historic MSF at ISV, and all the goals have been successfully met, surpassed, and smashed. After careful tabulation, more than 600 families participated in this book distribution, and Team ISV accrued 201,627.03 book points, which includes, just in 3 weeks, Team ISV distributed 1,792 Srimad Bhagavatam sets, and Team ISV raised $237,000 519.03 in Lakshmi. And from Gaur Purnima until today, Team ISV distributed 2,892 Srimad Bhagavatam sets, smashing the goal of 2,500 and surpassing the last year's goal of 2,586 sets. We thank all the Sankirtan devotees who have put their heart and soul into this MSF, our donors, our well-wishers who contributed towards this MSF. And we express our deepest gratitude to our beloved Vaisheshika Prabhu and Nirakula Mataji, and all of Srila Prabhupada's disciples who are inspiring Team ISV. We pray at the lotus feet of Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu, Srila Prabhupada, to you, to shower your blessings on Team ISV so that we can continue distributing thousands of sets of Srimad Bhagavatam and reach the goal of 100,000 sets someday. Hare Krishna. Shri Shri Radha Madan Mohan ki, Shriman Mahaprabhu ki, Shri Shri Lakshmi Nrsimha Deva ki, Shri Shri Panchatattva ki, Srila Prabhupada ki.
Hare Krishna. Our heartfelt thanks to our leaders who've taken responsibility on their heads to make sure to help keep everyone in a mood of cooperation, for it's not what we do, but how we do it that's important. Jai Madhava Prabhu, Pavani Bhakti, Sri Krishna Purushottam, Malini, Shraddha Devi Dasi, and all the leaders. Our special thanks to all of you for taking this sacred burden of love on your heads. Haribol. Sharira Dvijajao Jodendriya Taheka Jibe Pele Vishaya Shagare Dharma Je Jivayati Loma Moisu Durmati. I'm okay. Take jeta katita shanshare Krishna Bodhodoya moy Kori bare jihwajai Shaprasharana dilo bahai Shayanamrita pao Radha Krishna Guna Gao Preme Dako Shri Chaitanya Nitai Preme Dako Shri Chaitanya Nita Mahaprasadi Govinde Nama Brahmani Vaishnave Sapapunyavatam Rajan Vishwaso Navijayat Prasade Sarvadhukanam Hanirasya Upajayate Prasanachetaso Yashu Buddhipaya Vatista Twayopa Bhukta Shrakanda Vasulankara Chachita Utishta Bojino Dasas Davamayam Jaimahi Bhagavad Shri Mahaprasada Ki Gaur Premanande Nitai Gaura Haribol 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 Nitai Gaura Haribol. Please come take prasadam. Haribo. Prasadam will be served in the picnic area just outside, right out this door and into the garden. We'll be here 11:29 to start. We'll be starting at 11:29, 59 seconds. Please be back. Vanchakalpadrishya kripasindhabe vacha patitanam pavanibhyo vaishnavebhyo namo namah.